Hi everybody, welcome back and welcome to Module 5, Behaviorism. Behaviorism is well exemplified by our little rat friend here who says, "We'll press lever for food." I'm sure that you are familiar with the name B.F. Skinner, father of the behaviorist movement, who would have been very familiar with that rat. Skinner believed that all of us are conditioned by our environment to behave in very particular ways. That when we have positive experiences, those are positive reinforcers and we are more likely to repeat those behaviors. When we have negative consequences to behaviors, of course, the opposite will occur. And Skinner's perspective was way down on one end of the continuum. That is, that he believed that our behaviors were basically entirely shaped by our environment, and that if we could shape the environment with enough precision, we could generate whatever kinds of behaviors we hoped to manage. I mentioned last time Skinner and the chicken. He really did believe that creative behaviors of all kinds were as absolutely controlled by the environment as a chicken's behavior, and that given a particular set of circumstances, an individual would have no more control or volition involved in writing a poem than a chicken did in laying an egg. If a chicken is exposed to the right circumstances, there will be an egg. If, presumably, according to Skinner, a potential poet was exposed to the right experiences, the right reinforcers, he or she would have no option but to write the poem. I have to admit that part of it kind of makes me smile. Nonetheless, behaviorism is an important aspect of psychology and is operational in many things still today. This dog is saying they give you a lot of treats while they're training you, so play dumb for as long as you can. And if you want to see a really classic example of behaviorism at work, work with dog training. If you look at clicker training that many people use for dogs, it's based on the assumption that if you give positive rewards for the behaviors you want and consequences for the behaviors you don't want, you will be able to shape the behaviors that you're hoping for. We see the same thing applied to human beings. Obviously, it's not exactly the same as dog training, but the basic principles behind applied behavior analysis are similarly behaviorist. Applied behavior analysis is a way of working with students' behavior, and it's based on the same basic principles as the clicker training, that we reinforce positive behaviors, we have consequences for negative behaviors, we prompt students to be able to do things on their own, and it is frequently used with students with autism and other kinds of behavior disorders. I think one of the most interesting applications of behaviorism today is in video gaming. If you talk to people who are video game designers, they very clearly work within behaviorist principles to get people to start playing, enjoy playing, and keep playing. And we have some really interesting things to look at this in this module to allow us to think about, are we, in playing video games, very far from those rats pressing the levers or not? Give us something to think about. And so, for our unit, I had to put this in because it just made me chuckle. We're going to keep calm and get our Skinner on and decide where we feel comfortable with behaviorist principles, where we think they're useful, and where we might be less comfortable. So, let's take a look at the module. You have our video introduction. We have the readings, which you can read. We've got a couple of videos here. There's a short video on classical and operant conditioning, kind of sort of behaviorist basics. There's a silly TV example of putting those principles in action. There's just a little think piece here from Mother Jones, of all places, not a scholarly piece at all, but an interesting one that references some scholarly research where there is some pushback from some writers on the possibility of using the practice of using behaviorism in dealing with problematic behaviors. So take a look at the article, see what you think. If you're interested in learning more about the more problem-solving approach to management that these authors are associated with. There's a walkthrough for their website, so you can get some more information there. And then there's the TED Talk on video game design, which I think you're going to find particularly interesting. You're asked in your application activity this week to think about using the principles that are used in video game design within classrooms. Now be careful, this is not an assignment that's asking you to think about how to teach with video games. That's not the issue. The issue is to say, if we understand the principles that video game designers are using to get people engaged, how can we use those same principles of engagement within the classroom? That's the kind of assignment we're talking about. And then you have a critical analysis paper coming at the end of the semester. This week I've suggested not that you hand anything in, just that you begin to think, where do I think I might want to go with that paper? This is one of those things you do not want to leave until the last week of the semester. You know how that goes. And finally, we're going to have our first small group conferences this week when you will be taking the lead. I'll be sending you some more specific directions for how to do that. You can find them under Conference C. But we will have small groups who will be working with our conference papers and conferences this week. I'll be very interested to listen to those. I'm going to come to as many as I can. And now I'll talk to you again soon.